As the City Councilor, Michelle Vu voted against funding for the Boston Regional Intelligence Center, known as BRIC. Now, as mayor, she just signed off on more than $3 million in new grants for the center, a data analysis operation that's home to Boston's database of suspected gang members. Now, the center has been a major source of controversy in recent years and is currently under investigation by Attorney General Andrea Campbell for allegedly discriminating against Black and Latino teens in this database. But the mayor and the city councilors who voted in favor of the grants argue that they are necessary to help law enforcement keep the city safe. Now, joining me to weigh in on the pros and cons are Fatema Ahmad. She's the executive director of the Muslim Justice League, which has been campaigning against the new funding, and City Councilor at Large Erin Murphy, who voted in favor of accepting the grant. So welcome to Greater Boston, and thank you for stopping by to kind of bring us all up to date. Fatema, I'm going to start with you. Why do you still oppose, even after maybe hearing what Mayor Wu, and we're going to get into exactly in a little bit why Mayor Wu changed, but are you still at this present moment against the funds going?
Absolutely. We're still against it, and so are many community organizations and many community members, because for the 15 or so years that BRIC has existed, they have had scandal after scandal, not just deporting a young person from East Boston, but surveilling activists, surveilling Muslim folks, surveilling Black people. So there's just a mountain of evidence of harms that BRIC has caused, and expanding it is something that we don't support. So
do you think that will still happen under a Black commissioner, police commissioner, whose boss is an Asian woman? Who is the they that have been targeting Black folks? As I understand, there's a lot of Black and Latino officers who are part of BRIC.
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, because I know a lot of counselors were bringing up how the idea of diversifying BRIC might help, but it won't. The race of law enforcement doesn't actually impact, the systemic violence that happens from law enforcement. It doesn't matter if it's a Black or brown person who's participating in this surveillance mechanism. So having a Black commissioner, which we've had before, having Mayor Wu in office doesn't change what this institution has been doing, right? They're going to continue doing things the same way, and these reforms that have happened are not substantial. It doesn't actually change the discriminatory foundation of an institution that, the whole point of BRIC is to look at people who are not suspected of doing violence. They're collecting information on all of us, including, former Mayor Marty Walsh, former Councilor Tito Jackson. Almost everyone has been impacted by BRIC.
Okay, Councilor Murphy, obviously, I can probably tell you don't really buy that because you voted for it.
I have a different opinion, and I voted twice, right? We voted for it once, and then we brought it to a committee meeting. But I would push back. When you introduced it, you said new funding. This is 4 years of grants. We're going back 4 years, and it's state grant money that is being sent to the city, only $850,000 a year. It totaled up over $3 million only because we were able to go back and approve all 4 years of past funding for the BRIC. But I disagree. I think the gang database is controversial and definitely is something we have to keep our eye on. We had a hearing for several hours where we talked directly with the BRIC leadership, and they said there were names on there, they've taken them off, and that they'll continue to. But the gang database is not the only thing that BRIC does. There's this belief that the only thing the BRIC does is collect names of innocent people across the city to target them, and that's not their only role.
Yeah, I've heard that, because kind of like ICE gets that too. ICE doesn't just deport.
No, there's actually so much more that BRIC does, and everything else they do is also really racist and Islamophobic. I mean, I'm sure the councilor would agree.
Don't agree with that.
Sorry, I didn't finish my point. I'm sure you would agree that them pulling in social media posts of Muslims who are using common Arabic words like the word for community, if your hashtags that you use as a counselor, the way that they pulled in hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Muslim Lives Matter, that to them was deemed suspicious for 2 years. And it was only when organizations uncovered that they were doing that they stopped. That's the same for the gang database.
But this funding is not going to change that. This funding is specific to updating the computer systems, right? The state funding, so it's not city money that we can have conversations on at the council or ask the mayor to change what we spend it on. The state sends it every year. It's the 4th year they sent it. And we approved that we would use it, and it's very specific what it's going to. It's for community outreach. It's for updating the computer systems where they collect data and,
it's
information.
Also for hiring analysts.
I just want to go to the following point, because I'm kind of curious. Why do you think Michelle Wu has changed her position, and why do you think she's changed position? Very briefly,
Sure.
why?
I mean, it's political, right? And people say it shouldn't be, but we're in politics. I think in her role now, she sees, and as myself as an at-large city councilor, safety is definitely the #1 concern across the city. People want safe streets. People want to be able to go to the park. Seniors want to feel safe in their homes and their community. Schools need to be safe. And I think she sees now in this role in working more directly with departments. Like my sole role on the city council is to make sure that city departments, all of them, not just the Boston Police, have the tools they need to be successful.
And you think BRIC helps them?
And BRIC is part of the Boston Police Department. They do a good job at what they do. And if they're doing something wrong, like if a teacher is harming a student, which happens, and it has happened here in Boston Public Schools, we need to make sure we arrest and make sure that we take care of that. So if someone in BRIC is misusing data, I am 100% in support of making sure we stop that.
Fatima, why did Mayor switch?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the councilors and for Mayor Wu, it is politics. It's not politics for me. It's not politics for our communities. As a woman of color who lives in Dorchester, who is actually impacted by violence and wants to feel safe, BRIC makes me and most Muslim folks and Black and brown folks feel unsafe. And, counselors testified to that yesterday as well.
Do police in general make you feel unsafe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does police make you feel unsafe?
No.
So we have a difference in the views of police here.
And representing the whole city, and I'm out there every day, 20 hours a day, and I've been doing this now for 2 years. I don't hear that narrative.
And I mean, it's not views, right? It's quite, documented that people of color are treated differently by police.
I do want to go to the statement.
If that's true, then we absolutely need to fix it. But the funding, that is money from the state that we would have to use our tax dollars on. Now, we can use that money that we wouldn't have to spend our own money for community policing or other things that I think are important to enhance the police department.
So I do want to go to a statement that Mayor Wu's office sent to us here at GBH. If we could put that up. The Boston Police Department has been an important partner in our efforts to build trust and safety through data-informed, community-driven strategies across every city department and neighborhood. And the BRIC plays a critical role in providing the intelligence and analysis. So you don't agree with Mayor Wu's view on that?
Well, they also haven't backed it up. For an agency that has all of these data analysts and is talking about data year after year, hearing after hearing, they haven't convinced even our current Attorney General that they are actually impacting violence in any helpful way. And yet there is, again, piles of evidence that we pry out of their hands, that we have to sue the city to get the records about the gang database to show the harms that they've caused.
You said you've talked to many people who are afraid of BRIC and the police department and so forth in your community. I'm curious to hear the folks that you talk about, because you're supposed to be the voice of your constituents.
Exactly.
What are your constituents saying?
And I represent the whole city. They're not saying that to me. When I'm at Mattapan, Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, every community meeting starts with an update from the police department. Every resident that attends or that I'm at other events across the city care about the violence and want to make sure our city is safe and people feel safe. And also a perception of safety is as important as reality. We know the data shows that we're one of the safest large cities in the world. But if people don't feel safe, we have to address it. Absolutely.
So I want to kind of get to...
To me, it seems like such a small dollar amount, too.
Yeah.
$850,000 for...
That's huge for communities.
I wish my colleagues...
I want to see if I can acknowledge both of you to acknowledge you. Do you not agree, though, Councilor Murphy, that there are people who legitimately are afraid of certain police officers because of their past experience or whatever it is?
Yes. And I would not diminish that at all or be disrespectful about people's feelings. Absolutely.
And can't you recognize that for a lot of folks, the police are who they go to in black and brown communities? They want to see more police. They want to see more law enforcement because of the crime rate. They'd rather take the police over the criminal any day, and that's probably what you hear when you go into black and brown communities.
Yeah, I can say... as someone who is in a black and brown community, again, who is in Dorchester, our communities, my neighbors want to feel more safe, and they think that the only option is law enforcement because we keep funneling so much money into it when we could actually put that money towards the organizations who are doing violence prevention on the ground.
And that's my point.
Who've been impacted by the gang database themselves who are doing that kind of work.
And I agree that, but the police is a small part of our overall city budget, and I do wish there was a political will, and my colleagues were as outraged with our BPS budget, $1.5 billion, and we're failing our black and brown kids every day in our BPS system. There are so many failing schools, and to me, that's the pipeline to prison, and that's where we can do outreach and spend more money focusing on social services, wraparound, before and after school programming. I don't think it's dismantling the police or being, having this narrative that the police are the enemy is going to get us to a place where people feel safe in the city.
I'll tell you what place we are right now. We're at a place where we have to continue this conversation off camera because we've got to continue. But I really want to thank both of you for coming on board. It's a great discussion. Hopefully we've enlightened some of our folks to kind of understand both sides of this position. So thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.